What up? It's your man back in the building. Back in the building, all right? So, first of all, shout out to my man Sean Regadio. All right. He looked out big time, all right? Rocking my hat. San Francisco, Giants, Bay Area. Love the Bay Area. Love San Francisco. Reminds me a little bit of New York City, but smaller. All right. Shout out to my man Reggie Reg, of course, and anybody who's watching. All right, let's get into it. A lot to talk about. A lot of opinion. I got a lot of opinion on stuff. All right. Okay, the Texans donate $100,000 to the victims in El Paso. The Dallas Cowboys donated $50,000 also to the victims. All right, great gesture by both organizations, but this is something that sports organizations should do. You know, sports organizations come into particular cities, make a lot of money off those particular cities from fans. They run off the fans. So this is something that all sports organizations should do. All sports organizations should also get involved in the community, trying to make the community better. Number one, it helps you because your players are going to be living in that community. Your investment is living in that community. So you want your investment to be around good things, or you don't want to have to worry about something happening to your investment. So all the sports organizations from, the Dallas Cowboys, the Texans, the LA Rams, the LA Chargers, you got to get out, get involved in the community, get out to these schools, and not just the schools, with the money that can afford to have you come. You got to get to those schools that will never be able to touch or see a professional athlete ever. You got to get to those neighborhoods that you might feel like you're scared to go to, um, and that would be a good thing. And nothing's gonna happen to you. You don't have to be afraid of anything. So I think that's a great gesture by the Cowboys and the Texans, of course, doing this. And not just this shouldn't just happen because of the shootings. This should go on anyway. Just like major colleges, the University of Texas, I'm sure they reach out in the Austin community. But colleges have to reach out also in those communities, um, and just try to better the community. Try to reach out and try to help people. We should all try to help one another. All right, great gesture there. All right, now Kenny Stills uh, has received. First of all, he called out the Dolphins owner. The Dolphins owner is running a fundraiser for Donald Trump. So Kenny Stills called him out. So the owner says he's for equality and against racism and all this, but then you run a fundraiser for Donald Trump. So Kenny Stills called him out, rightfully so. You can't be on both sides of the fence. You got to be. It's one or the other. It's one side or the other. And if Donald Trump is your friend, you need to pull him to the side and holler at him. So Kenny Stills, great job calling the dude out. And I'm sure if he had not contributed to the racial equality thing and the racial injustice thing, Kenny Stills might not have said anything to him because he'd have known what side he was on. But he, wants to. You can't do both. You can't do both. You got to pick a side. So Kenny Stills, good job of calling him out. And for calling him out, he has received death threats. So, I mean, come on, man, keep it classy, people. You gonna give the guy death threats? What kind of coward are you to give a man death threats who wants to see things done the right way, which things should be done the right way. So, and it amazes me that you can be so for free speech is for you don't have a problem with the Klan coming out with their little thing, but you got a problem with Kenny still speaking out against something like that. That right there is a problem. So to the coward that that, or the cowards that want to issue Kenny Stills death threats, shame on you, shame on America for letting this go down. Free speech. Everybody shouldn't have free speech. Per se. Put it like this: certain things we should also be against, and I always say that certain things we should also be against, and like racism, sexism, things like that. Discrimination. We should all be against stuff like that. So if you're going to give a guy death threats for being against that, then what does that say about you? All right. So I'm with Kenny Stills on this one. All right. Next thing, Kevin Durant said that the Warriors, he wasn't forced into action or forced to come back by the Warriors. And I believe him. I believe what he's saying. Again, he doesn't want any issues. I think what forced him to come back is he reads Twitter. He loves Twitter, and he reads Twitter, and he listens to everything people say, and things. I think that's what Kevin Durant. I mean, he's what, about 32. I mean, he'll get it. He'll get it that you don't have to listen to everything that people say. Do what makes you happy. It's your life. So you did that when you went to Golden State. Don't listen to the Twitter universe if that's what you're doing. That's my opinion. I think he's been listening to what people are saying about him. So he wanted to jump back in, and he wanted to help his team. And they saying all this stuff. They can win without him and stuff like that. So I think that bothered him a little bit, and he let stuff bother him a little bit. So it is what it is. But I do believe him that I don't think the Warriors forced him to act. The Warriors would have loved for him to be there, healthy. Um, but I do think the doctors made some mistakes. So whatever doctor said that it wasn't going to tear, made a big mistake. Anytime you mess with that Achilles, it's something. It's very sensitive, very sensitive. So anyway, next. All right, my man Cap wants to play. Colin Kaepernick wants to play again, and I can't blame him. I can't blame him at all for wanting to play. I mean, we all know what they did to him, and they, meaning the owners, we all know what they did to him. Of course, I'm with on Colin Kaepernick's side on this one. He just took a knee against racial injustice and police brutality, and the what can I call it? I don't know the word for it, but the part of America flipped it to like he was disrespecting the flag. See, now what they've done is, made people aware of what he's done is made people aware of what the national anthem, the song says, and the stanza that was taken out of it. People have researched it, and now people are like, wait a minute, what's going on here? But it's very unfair what was done to him. But I'm sure he's got other things going on, and I can't blame him for wanting to play. If I was him, I probably would want to play too. He was young, took a stance on something, and of course, there's a team that could probably use him. I'm watching these preseason games, and all I'm hearing about is the backup quarterbacks aren't good, or they're too young. Where there's a guy on the sideline. I mean, you bringing back, Colt McCoy, who, no disrespect, but Colt McCoy, for as far as NFL standards there's no teams that are game preparing for Colt McCoy and like, all right, we worried about what he gonna do. You know what I'm saying? Whereas Colin Kaepernick, I think, would be a whole different thing. So, hopefully it works out for him, but I just don't see the owners doing it. Because here in America, a lot of times, when people are wrong, they won't admit to being wrong. They'll just keep riding it out. So, and Colin Kaepernick, we all know was done very wrong. He should have been playing, and the way that he was done was just, and it's right in front of everybody's face. Everybody knows, but see, those certain people are like, well, good for him. He disrespected the flag. The flag don't mean that much, not to me. It sure doesn't mean that much to me. To where I don't understand how you could want a man to not be able to work and do the things that he loves to do. When he never killed anybody, he never beat anybody up. He stood for something. He stood for people that couldn't stand for themselves. All right, we'll leave it like that. All right. Now, staying on the protest thing, a lot of people are not watching the Pan Am games. But the Pan Am games have been pretty good. I watched a little bit of it. I watched the volleyball. I've seen some of the basketball. Um, and I've seen some of they had beach volleyball early. I watched some of that. But you have two Americans, Race and Bowden and Gwen Berry, who have protested at the Pan Am games. Um, they're not John Carlos and Tommy Smith who did it at the Olympics, but they're at the Pan Am games. But they protested the injustices that go on in America as well, and they did it on the podium at the Pan Am games. So a lot of people aren't watching the Pan Am games, but I'm watching them. I'm watching them. Well, some of them. I watch some of them when I get time to sit down and watch. I watch. Um, but I just think that says a lot. That says a lot. Racing Bolton's a fencer, and he's speaking out. You know, I mean, against Donald Trump, and it's like, when is everybody gonna get it? But the one thing that I don't want the Democrats to do is just to play on race only. You have to come with a plan. Come with a plan about how you're going to make people's lives better in this country. But don't just run on, hey, Donald Trump's a racist. Okay, all right. Well, if he is, he is. But what kind of plan are you going to do to make things better in America for people? That's my thing. So, so we'll see how this goes. But kudos to them for standing for something, and we'll see if there's any backlash when they get back to the United States. I'm going to follow this one and see if there's any backlash against these two people that protested. So we'll see. We'll see about that. Racing Bowden and Gwen Berry. So we'll see about that. Now, to the Dan Levitard part, my favorite part. And it seems like we talked about Trump already. I already said something about him already. And that's why I always say that, sports and politics it's gonna come together. It's intertwined together. And at some point, you can't tell somebody to just play basketball and not be worried about what's around them. You can't tell somebody to play football, baseball, tennis, and not be concerned with what's around them. Because they have family members that are probably going through some of these things that are being talked about. All right. So now the Dan Levitard part, my favorite part. Now, shout out to my man Dan. I don't know you, but hopefully I'll meet you one day. Epstein, my man Epstein, suicide, or so they say. Now, my opinion on that. There's no way that was a suicide. There's no way that was a suicide. Now, the funny thing to me is that, Bill Barr had something to say. It's just funny to me. What have you got? You've been the foulest guy. You've been the most arrogant guy. I watched you at your confirmation. I watched you when they called you in to interview you about, what happened with Trump. And you've been the most arrogant guy ever. And now you got something to say. You're appalled at something? We're appalled at you, Bill Barr. We're appalled at you. All right. So the Epstein thing, he had a lot of names. He got a lot of people he's going to bring down, on both sides, as Donald Trump would say, both sides. He had a lot of big names that he was going to bring down, and they probably still could come down. But prayers for those victims who wanted to see him, because him committing the suicide is a cowardly way out. That's a coward. He was being very cowardly. So, hopefully the victims can feel some relief. I mean, it's hard for them to. I would guess that this type of thing would stick with them the rest of their lives. So, it's just a shame, what goes on, and hopefully one day we could get to the bottom of it. But you know, the Epstein thing, come on, man, that wasn't a suicide. And there have been a lot of things on the internet where they've been saying they had like these memes where Stevie Wonder was the bodyguard and stuff like that, or Stevie Wonder was the guy watching the cell or something like that. But you know, hey, we in some trying times. Like I said, um, I'm not for the impeachment thing. I'm not for that. You know, so let's ride these last 16 months out. Strap your seatbelts on. Ride these last 16 months out, and let's vote them out. All right, that's it for me today. Um, you know, like I said, be nice, be careful. And hey, stand for something or you'll fall for anything. All right, that's gonna be what I will name this one. Stand for something or fall for anything. All right, so hey, peace out, be good, one love.